Hello, my name is Helen Walters and I'm a member of Cycle Alton. Cycle Alton is a group of people and groups who are interested in improving the cycling experience around Alton and the surrounding villages. I'm recording this to record a presentation that I gave to a meeting of Cycle Alton in July. In that meeting, we discussed some options that we would now like to discuss with the wider town. We are keen to see a piazza-style town centre in Alton. There is good evidence that this is good for business, is good for the people, and in this time of COVID is important to enable social distancing. This is the presentation I gave to predominantly Cycle Alton members, but also we were pleased to welcome to the meeting councillors from Alton Town Council, East Hampshire District Council and Hampshire County Council, who were there to watch our discussion and to be able to ask questions and to quiz us to explore these options better. So as a cycling group, we are keen to see a vibrant town centre in Alton. What we would love to see is a high street that is vibrant, has people at its centre, and is built around the needs of the businesses and the people that live in the town centre. We'd like to see spaces where people want to linger, partly because we live in Alton and we'd like to share that space too, and partly because increasingly the evidence is that if you create these lingerable spaces, people spend more time in the town centre, they spend more money in the shops in the town centre, and that businesses benefit hugely from a town centre that is built around people rather than one that is built around cars. So we'd like to see spaces such as these in these pictures. We'd like to see people enjoying the cafes and having space to cycle, to socially distance in these times. And this particular slide shows a picture of a gentleman cycling along a road, and that is there because it shows what could be done on a temporary basis. We have an opportunity with the need to social distance and the encouragement of government to get us walking and cycling to experiment with maybe road closures or using our road spaces differently. And this piece of road has been changed by having a few planters, a few temporary planters, a few temporary bike racks, and creating space. And these streets can be transformed very easily in a temporary fashion so that a population can experiment and see what works for them. Here are some other examples of the sort of stuff we'd like. Beautiful flat spaces where people can walk and stroll and linger, places where they want to be. And one of the pictures again shows a piece of AstroTurf on the road, which is the size of an official car parking space. And it shows how much space you could create with one car parking space. How if you put a piece of AstroTurf down, a park bench and a few plants, people will come, people will sit and they will linger. And importantly for businesses and the survival of our town centre and the thriving of our town centre, they'll spend more money. What we don't want is dead, empty shops. And what we don't want is car pollution, poor air quality, and all the issues that come along with cars and make the town centre an unpleasant place to be. We have some beautiful architecture in our very beautiful town centre. We don't want that to be dominated by metal boxes on wheels. We'd like it to be visible and enjoyed by people spending time around the buildings. So what we have here is a map of Alton Town Centre, and we will be showing 3 different options. All of the options have a number of things in common. They all create shared spaces for people. This will allow social distancing. It'll create space where cafes can spill out onto the pavements, where we can have seating and planters, and easy cycling and walking and accessibility. The evidence shows, as I say, in both the UK and across the world, that if you can create spaces such as these, it will increase the footfall and increase the spend in these areas. It can be easily done, all of our ideas can be easily done with a can of paint and some signage. There's no need for earthworks, there's no need for red and white Lego blocks obliterating and cutting up the high street. It can be done very easily because of the layout of Alton Town Centre. We want to maximise one of the assets that Alton Town Centre has. Remarkably, it has 760 parking spaces in the car parks that run down both sides of the high street. And that is in addition to all the parking in Sainsbury's. We know from the payment data that these 660 spaces are never all full. And so we have parking capacity to spare in Alton. We also, all these options would allow bus access as it is now, unchanged. We would like to see short-term free parking that is currently on the high street moved to the car parking spaces that are either side of the high street to use that unused capacity. The disabled parking could also be transferred to these car parks, and all of these car parks are easily accessible to the high street. I think there are 9 who are directly connected to the high street with passageways, and that 7 of those passageways are step-free and easily accessible. We do have taxi spaces on the high street, but they could easily be in the car parks too, and those that sit outside the Swan Hotel could as easily sit in the Swan Hotel's car park out the back of the Swan Hotel. So what are the options? Option 1 is the most radical. And this is closing the town centre to all motorised vehicles apart from buses. So we're looking at the Crown Hotel at the top of the high street, down through the high street to the end, to where Marks and Spencer's are, to where the Lady Place car park goes off. This would also include Market Street, and it would include Turk Street. So the buses would still be able to access that space, but cars wouldn't be in that space. This would enable a huge amount of spare space, for shared space for people. It would enable two-way cycling through the full length of the town centre. It would allow the social distancing that we all need right now, the cafes to spill out onto the pavements, the walking, the seating, the planters, and extra bike parking. And it totally removes the negative impacts on trade of cars. It removes the negative impact of noise and nuisance and air quality that is associated with cars, and it takes those totally out of the high street area while maintaining access through those 760 car parking spaces. Cars can easily bypass the high street by going down Drayman's Way, and they can still access up to the college through Church Street, and they can still access the far end of town through the high street as they do now. So that's option 1. Option 2 is slightly less radical. It's still covering the area from the Crown Hotel at the top of the high street through to the Lady Place car park entrance, and includes Turk Street and Market Street. And what we're suggesting here is that you could remove all the on-street parking from those roads. You would still allow access of cars and buses, and you would allow the cars and buses to run down the high street and down the high street and up through Market Street. You would allow cars and buses to come up the high street here and through to Turk Street. But we would remove that crossing, the difficult crossing there, apart from for buses who could still be able to turn there. This would create, again, a lot of space in the town centre, and that space could be used for bike cycling in both ways, so a contra-lane cycleway on the opposite direction to the cars, so allowing two-way cycling throughout the town centre. It would create space for additional seating, for planters, for bike stands, and it would create that space that we need for social distancing at the moment and for the businesses to trade in a more open-air way. It does maintain the ability of cars to access Lenton Street more easily through Market Street, and it does maintain some of the negative aspects of cars, those negative aspects on trade, on noise, on nuisance and air quality. But it's a great improvement on what we currently have. And then option 3 is a slightly more radical option than option 2. So again, we're asking to remove all the on-street parking in the town centre area. And in addition to that, we would be suggesting closing the high street at the lower end, so from the Marks and Spencer's Lady Place car park entrance up to Turk Street, to close that to motorised vehicles apart from buses. So very similar to the situation we're very used to on Tuesday with the market. But what that would create was a large car-free zone at the lower end of the lower end of the town centre, creating yet more space for shared spaces, for social distancing, for the cafes, for the businesses, walking, seating, planters, to create a space that is truly lingerable for people, where people want to come and meet with their friends and spend time and spend money, hopefully. This does maintain the ability of cars to access some of the high street and up to Lenton Street, and it does minimise some of the aspects, the negative aspects of cars. It minimises some of the negative impact on trade, on noise, on nuisance, on air quality. So those are the 3 options that we discussed at our meeting, for the Cycle Alton meeting in July. Our next step was to discuss that with the councillors who were there, who gave some very useful and thoughtful feedback and took away our ideas for them also to discuss further with their fellow elected members. We are very aware that we are merely one group of interested people in Alton, and we would like to share this, most importantly at the moment, with the businesses, the retailers who inhabit the town centre. And we are actively trying to connect and communicate with all of those people through flyers and an invitation for a conversation. And we're hoping that this video will also help to explain our thinking. We are one group, but we think that this would benefit all of the people of Alton and all the businesses in the town centre area, because that's what the evidence shows. So we would like to discuss this with as many people as possible. Thank you very much for listening.